As you may know, we own an Embassy RV. Our van comes with two 460 amp master volt lithium batteries and the C-Zone control panel to run everything. One of the nice things about this system is I can see how many amps each component needs to function. I started thinking about all of this because a friend of ours who also owns an Embassy RV was concerned at how much power she was using. That got me interested in researching how many amps things like our appliances and lighting were using in our van. So, of course, I started testing. The first thing I did was turn on our master volt batteries and then made sure everything else was off. This means lights, inverter, and so on. The panel itself is always on, of course, and there are a couple of powered USB plugs that remain on. Keeping this in mind, the system was using 1.6 amps in this state. Everything in our van is 12 volt except for the household plug, so at this point the inverter is off. I then turned each item on individually to see how much power it was using. Everything was set to 100% power, things like lights for instance, so if you dimmed these they would of course use fewer amps. Note that items such as the fridge and heater fluctuate as they cycle on and off, so I just recorded the highest amperage I saw at 7.1 for the fridge and 8.7 for the heater. Notice the column titled Item Only. This number is derived by subtracting the 1.6 amps used by the C-Zone and powered USBs from whatever power is being used when an item is turned on. In the case of the microwave, it's subtracting the 3.4 amps used when the inverter is on as well. This gives the estimated amount of power used by the item itself. I'll be indicating the total power used, so if you want to see what any individual component actually uses, look at the Item Only column. The column titled Amps per Unit divides the item-only amps by however many items there are. For instance, there are 5 ceiling lights using 1.6 amps total, which means each light is using 0.32 amps. I did not test the AC since it is rather cool outside right now, but I plan on seeing how it does when it gets warmer. Also note our running board light does not work at the moment, so it wasn't tested. Once repaired, I'll update the file. Oh, and speaking of the file, I have a copy of it on my website if anyone is interested. By far the biggest energy hog tested was the microwave, at 127 amps. But since this is only used for a few minutes at a time, the real energy cost is much less throughout the day. Remember that the microwave needs the inverter on, so that is using power as well. Although I tested the 12-volt television, it wasn't like I was watching TV or flipping channels or anything, so this is basically with just the TV on. Also, I did not test the TV antenna as this needs the inverter on, so there will be some power use there. Things like mood lights did not register a change from the 1.6 amps when nothing was on, but I'm sure it must be using some small amount of amps, just not enough to register on the panel. There are 2 sets of ceiling lights, a set of 5 for most of the van, and one extra one specific to the bathroom. These were tested independently at 100%. There are also 2 sets of reading lights, a set of 8 for most of the van and a set of 2 specific to the bathroom area. These lights can be independently turned on and off via switches on the lights themselves, So if all the lights are switched off, even though the C-zone panel says they are on, no amps are being used. I tested these two sets of lights independently with all of a set of lights on at once. It's doubtful anyone would have all of them on at the same time, but it does show how much power they need. Even with all the lights on, the reading lights only used 2.5 amps, and the bath reading lights used only 1.8 amps. Just so you know, the vanity light is a light built into the bathroom mirror. Although it used 3.4 amps, you don't use it for long periods as you would ceiling or reading lights. The fans were tested at three different levels: 100%, 25%, and 10%. At 100%, the fans are quite loud, so we never set it this high, but I wanted to know how many amps it used at this level. We usually have the fans on at much lower settings, like 25% or even as low as 10%, hence the testing at those levels, so anywhere between 2.2 and 3.2 amps. When you need water, the water pump must be on, but it only needs energy while you open the tap, so even though it uses 6.8 amps, it's only for a very short time. The embassy also uses an ozone system to purify the water. It uses 11 amps, but is only on for a few minutes each week, so not an issue. So, what was the point of all this? Why do these readings matter? Well, a couple of reasons. With these figures, I can get a general idea of how long my batteries would last based on amps used. I just divide the 782 usable amps our batteries provide by the number of amps we are actually using. This gives us the number of hours we have before we need to charge the batteries. Of course, it is just an estimation, as the power needed will fluctuate, but it gets me in the general ballpark. I can estimate, for instance, if I will have enough power to run my AC system all night, and that could be a concern on hot summer's night. But more importantly, these numbers indicate the normal amount of power used for any single component. So if an item starts using far greater power than normal, I can determine if there's an issue that I need to be aware of. For instance, if the inverter, which uses 3.4 amps just being on, started using 10 amps with nothing else on, I know there's something wrong, and I can address that issue before it turns into a real problem. Keep in mind, each system will be slightly different, so you will want to review your power consumption using your own vehicle. If you don't have the Master Volt or C-Zone system, you can still review your power usage as long as your system shows you the number of amps used to power different components in your van. If it does that, you should still be able to estimate normal power consumption for any given appliance. Be seeing you.